Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Welcome back, everybody. We're happy to talk with this gentleman. It's been a while. Finally reconnected with him, and he's done so much in his life and continues to do so. He's an accomplished architect in the New York City, New Jersey area, also a tennis pro. Many different sides of this gentleman, and we're gonna center on architecture today and some interesting spins on that. Mr. John Riggio is back with us. Hey, John, how you doing today?
Great. Hi, Steve. How's everything?
Very well, very well. It's good to have you back here. Been a while. Everything going well?
Yes, great. Thanks a lot. Yeah, I've been having podcasts. It's good to give you an update on a lot of things and talk about some new stories today.
So, centering on architecture, the instruments that are used, the mindset that goes along with that, can we look at that for a moment?
Yeah, I think one thing about architect work is very interesting. I think from my experience and from talking to other people, when you start working in architecture studies in college, and then say you would get a job. And a lot of people always go through this thing of learning drafting. Today, everyone is doing the CAD drafting. As they get into doing this work for a number of hours, they really start to feel the stress. It's kind of like a stress that people get in their mind from really looking at their work and trying to concentrate on their work. But one interesting thing about that whole stress and a certain kind of ability to concentrate on the work is sort of different than doing other things. I noticed comparatively to sports, particularly tennis, the concentration of doing architect work is completely different. In fact, architect work is really very loose in some ways. So in some ways, doing architect work is very stressful on your mind. It could get you tired. You want to drink extra cups of coffee to recover. And some people listen to music also to free their mind up and sort of loosen their mind, and then they go back to studying architect work, architecture, doing drafting. And but the concentration for sports, I noticed, was very different, and probably for other things. I noticed one thing I did was when I moved to New Jersey, I tried something new. I went and took some lessons on playing the drums. And I did like 6 months or more lessons, and it was very enjoyable learning to play the drums. I was playing the drums. It was fun to do. I didn't expect to really do anything with the drums. It was just for my own leisure time, just playing some drums. And one very interesting thing about playing the drums was I started to realize playing the drums started to build a certain kind of concentration that was similar to when I was younger playing sports. And this was pretty good because then when I was playing my weekend tennis, I started to play better. This was very interesting. And
wow.
So yeah, so this was very good. And so playing the drums was good. It was building back some concentration. It wasn't doing anything bad to my architect work. I think maybe it was helping a little. And so overall, that was very good. I think I noticed from years ago, a lot of people who play sports, they also like to play an instrument too. So
I find that fascinating in a lot of regards because there's you using instruments, using technology, playing tennis, very detailed and requires coordination. And then there you are playing drums. Did you find that really increased your concentration and your coordination by adding drums to your mix?
It did, yes. I think for a little while it was pretty good. It was enjoyable to just play the leisure drums. I got into it. I even went to some jams and started playing in some jams. So I think I wasn't doing too bad with the learning the drums. I think I was able to get into a good slot, finding some interesting things to do. And so I think that was good. When I was much younger, I learned a little guitar. I think I took to the drums pretty good and just played for fun.
Mm-hmm.
But I just noticed that one interesting thing about the concentration was sort of different to play an instrument. And so I think that is pretty good. As far as architect work, sometimes in school and design class and things, they might talk about architect design as if you're maybe making like a song or something like that. But I think the concentration for the architect work and architecture studies is completely different. It's a completely different ability, completely different. It builds up a lot of different kinds of stresses with your mind. The concentration with the sports, completely different type of concentration. I noticed the drums was playing some instruments was assisting in sort of bringing back some that kind of
Mm.
mindset to really to do something with the drums and concentrating on it. So it was overall a good experience. I got some new things, and it was fun to do. And I think that was one thing I was just learning. I think over the years they don't really tell people you should really like play an instrument on the side for any reason or things like that. They didn't really give any definite reason of why you would want to play an instrument on the side just for fun.
Hmm.
But I just discovered that on my own, that playing the drums was in fact bringing back a certain kind of concentration, which was good. I sort of liked that idea. It was a nice kind of concentration to really focus your mind on something. Studying architecture, doing the drafting, it brings out a whole stress in your mind, but it's completely different. In some ways, the concentration that I was starting to experience with the uh, playing instrument was completely different. And so that
Hmm.
was one interesting thing about that whole thing with the everyday working with the architecture work and then doing some instruments on the side was pretty good.
I want to ask you about your architecture, design, drafting, that whole area. Now, you have to adhere to certain codes. So you're kind of locked in there in terms of what you do. But how much of it gives you freedom of creativity and yeah, call it expression? You know where I'm going with that? Where you're free to design, but you have to adhere to codes. Do you feel that there's a lot of freedom in terms of what you do and what you design when you're working on a project?
Um, there is freedom to design, but I think the word designing, it sort of includes the current architectural styles, includes all of the code work that
Mhm.
is present, and that is really what makes the design. You can't
Yeah,
really invent. I notice some people who do architectural design, maybe read in a magazine of something more like a artistic type design, is a little different than what I work on every day. That is nothing wrong with that, but it's slightly different. But the architectural design, of course, it's open to do the design, but of course, it's within those limitations of the code work and the architectural style, the present architectural style. I think the architectural style has been changing each year. It slowly adjusts, it changes, things become a little bit more to like revival styles, then they start heading more to like a modern style.
sure.
Overall, my work, I sort of keep a lot of it within more like contemporary, where we're using all new materials, new technologies, trying to keep everything. So all of the things like efficiency in the buildings, commercial or residential, is all the new things, the new technologies, and the different things of the trends and the styles. I always try to stay with the trends and the styles. Some of the trends are based off materials. They're based off of what they're
Mm.
selling in the supply stores, different types of equipment, how they go together, and things like that. And that's what makes the design. So the design, of course, you're open to the design, and also my design. I always try to keep a certain type of influence in the design to give it a sort of like a direction of what I'm putting together with the current trends and the codes and the technology, and I put it together, and it seems to work pretty good.
Sure.
my designs. They get phone calls a lot of times. They really like my design. They like how they look, and they want to do the same thing on their house and things like that.
Ah, okay. And I was just going to get to that too, that, you have the freedom to design, then you have the codes to adhere to, keeping up with the trends, and I guess most importantly, what the client wants. It's not you're just doing whatever you want to do. You have to,
Yes.
yeah.
Well, I think any design, one thing is the program of the design is really made by the owner. Sometimes it's a developer, it's just the homeowner of the house. That's usually called the program. And in the program, you put it together,
Hmm.
and then you have to apply the architectural style, the current codes, the current technology, and you put it together with what their ideas of the plan is, how many rooms they want. They want Jack and Jill bedrooms, the double height space is preferred, or things like that. And I take that program from the owner or the land developer, and I put it together into the initial design, and that's how we get going, and we start to develop the design from there.
Wow. Um, tell me about tell me about your dad. Your dad was very instrumental in your life when it came to this work. Is that right?
Yes, I think when I was very young, my father used to talk to me, and I think I was really the one who was really listening to what he said. And he had
Hmm.
some very interesting stories. He really liked doing construction. And so when he was young, he had his own construction company. He had a couple brothers work for him. And he used to get into this whole thing of working in New York City, in Brooklyn. He was originally born in New Jersey, and he really was like doing that work. He also got into some interesting things, like at lunchtime, he told me stories. He used to play his guitar on the sidewalk there. A lot of times he was working like in the middle of Manhattan, like on Mott Street, and he used to like to play his guitar.
Wow.
And
Wow.
then some he did a very interesting things a lot of people wouldn't think of having like his Harley Davidson motorcycle, drive it around, ride his motorcycle around Manhattan, Brooklyn area. So he was doing very good. He's becoming successful as that. And he even had this side job. I think a lot of contractors today, they always like to keep the income going. And he used to, I was doing some research about like family heritage and papers about my father. And I just was reminded looking at them that he used to do this side job where he used to load ships at the dock, which is very interesting. You would think it was someone else, but I remember him telling me this was really interesting. I think,
Hmm.
and then also he was had a lot of coordination. He was involved with things like he was pretty good at tennis, and he was also a boxing champ in high school. Him and his father, they used that generation used to do a lot of things like boxing as a sport. So he
Wow.
used to like to do that.
Oh,
And
but I just got to jump in here. So your dad's playing guitar. He's playing tennis. Sounds a lot like you.
sure,
Wow.
yeah, I learned a lot of those things from him. He told me also then what happened is he got into some hard times because he was in World War II. He was drafted into World War II,
Hmm.
and their family was very patriotic. He really wanted to go and help. Unfortunately, he got wounded in the war, and he wasn't really able to do construction as a full-time job anymore. So what he did was he was still able to do a few development jobs. So I know here in New Jersey, he did a few jobs where he bought the property, hired an architect, built the house, and then sold it and did this. And he was telling me the secrets of how to really to do that and make it work successfully for himself. So
Wow.
I think one interesting thing is since he wasn't really working as a contractor all the time, he was working for the railroad company instead. He worked in an office. He wasn't allowed to lift too much heavy weight anymore just because of his injuries. And but I wasn't really considered like the son of a contractor. I think his construction, even though it was going on, even when I was young, he was still doing maybe develop a house every once in a while. And but here, that whole thing of me really growing up as a son of the contractor wasn't there. And even when I was in architecture college and things like that, uh, that whole thing really wasn't present. And even after that, like going, getting my experience and things like that, I think most of people would think of me as just getting my direction in construction industry, doing the architectural design is really through academics, through the elementary school, which they recommended me to do this kind of work. And but the whole thing with me really being the son of the contractor was never really surfaced. I think today it really isn't present of things like that. But the whole time, really, that was my father's favorite work, and he really liked that, and he tried to keep it going, developing some houses even when I was very young. I
Wow.
think unfortunately my father, he died sort of a little young from cancer and all of his problems, the injuries and things like that. So that's what
Uh,
really happened. But I think that was very interesting, and I think I always listened to what he said, and always remembered all those different stories about him. So that was always
mm,
very interesting. I
wow.
think the stories like that, he was a contractor, and like the son of the contractor is very interesting. It was sort of lost, and really it isn't really that really visible today. I'm still sort of working through the academics to go into school and things like that. So that was
So
very, very interesting.
you mentioned something before we got on here, and I don't want to run out of time. We have a few minutes left. Paranormal activity involving structures or houses have presented themselves to you over the years. Can you tell us more about that?
Well, in fact, I think with my work in houses and things like that, there haven't been too many instances of paranormal. But what happened was when I was in college, they had me visit one of their locations that my college had. They had different buildings, different locations, and this was a new building that they had just bought. It was really used for people psychological problems. And what happened
Oh,
was
wait a minute. I think I know what you're referring to because we're both from Long Island.
over in Islip.
Yes. I know exactly what you're talking about. Wow. Which that facility since no longer in use for many, many years, but there's been some talk about crazy kind of things going on there in terms of the paranormal. Wow.
Well, what happened was I went there and I was going to visit that building a few times. It was they asked me to go there for classwork, so I went there
Sure.
and I walk into the building and I hear like a young child, one or more of them, like they are being they're in pain, that they're being held, they need help. So there were some nurses as I entered in. There's some nurses to the left because they were closing out and leaving that building. But they still were there. So I go over there. I said, "There's someone screaming. They need help. Are you gonna go down there and help them?" And they said, "No." So what I did was said, "Okay." So I just walked there very
Mm.
quietly. And when they weren't around, I just walked right into the door and went right down to the hallway. The lights did not turn on. It's completely dark. So I walked through one of the chambers, walked to the next chambers until I heard voices was still there. As long as I heard the voices, I went to help. I mean, I didn't want to walk around as some kid or something. Maybe he was playing and fell down or something or hurt or something. So I went there and I checked out what was going on. And I ended up meeting someone sitting there in the middle of the dark. And yeah, so they said the name was Taz. So I think what happened was after talking there, I think I really did help somebody because that person, the next time I went back there, they weren't there anymore. So,
Wow.
and that was the same day in the newspaper, they showed 1,000 balloons. The computer was taken down. The 1,000 balloons in the air. And they were saying 1,000 balloons in the air were really from someone's graduation, but I saw that taking place over like a 2-week period, all the balloons going up in the air. That's what I was thinking about. And then what happened was that whole paranormal situation, I think I really did help some kind of problem. I never heard anyone yelling for help after that. And so that was really good.
Wow. Wow. I'm just getting, we may have even passed each other along the way, not in that facility, but just along in terms of Long Island. We might not have even known it because I grew up here. You grew up on Long Island. And as soon as you started mentioning that facility, right away, I was like, oh, wait a minute. I know what he's talking about. Wow. Interesting. Yeah. And
Yes.
that building still stands, long abandoned. But people go there and do report a lot of what you're saying, paranormal activity surrounding it.
Yeah, my school was using one of the buildings. I don't know if they still use it anymore. But yeah, so I went there. I really went to see what was wrong. I heard one or more children screaming for help and everything, and then they got retired. So I think that's what really happened. And I think the word got back somehow. I was talking to the dean of my architecture college, and I think he knew about that whole situation. He was really happy about it near the end of the school, and that was really what happened. So that is
My gosh.
that was a good story. And yeah, I just didn't want to just walk through the hallways there hearing someone needed help and wondering why no one would go and help them. So I just went and did it myself.
Oh my gosh, I would be doing the same exact thing, but a different situation when you show up and there's maybe nothing to be found. Wow.
That's correct. Yes, I think I wasn't sure what the story was, and it was really very interesting. Walking down our hallway, no lights, the switches don't work, nothing turns on, and when one chamber, two chamber, until there was someone there. That was really very interesting.
Like a movie, almost like
a lot of times those discovery shows, they have them on cable television. I watch those, and they're talking about things like that all the time.
Yeah.
I noticed they don't necessarily go there and meet somebody, but that is one interesting thing. So I think since they're talking about it on television all the time, I might as well just share that story.
Oh no, I appreciate it. I get it. And what he's talking about, heard it many times. It's not just people have experienced in this facility. Again, picture a movie, scary movie. This building fits it. John, we're just about out of time. I want to share. And I know we had pictures to take a look at, so maybe we could save those for next time.
Okay.
Of some of your work. JohnRiggio.com. If you're looking for an architect, what is your scope? Where can you work with people? Are you just licensed for the New York, New Jersey area? How does that work?
Yeah, I'm licensed in all of New York State, all of New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. I can work in any of those states without any problem.
And Pennsylvania. Okay, great. John, fantastic catching up with you. Thanks for being here today, and looking forward next time we get together.
You're welcome. It's good talking to you, Steve. Thanks.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the mytuner-radio, online radio box, and simpleradio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.